Rupa Huq, she went for our Chancellor, Kwasi Kwarteng, and called him superficially black. She apologised immediately. She was suspended from the party as a result, which is probably why it could have gone far worse for the party, but they acted. She was suspended. She apologised. However, I just wanted to have a discussion. What does that mean? Do you know what it means? It's an age-old discussion, particularly within amongst black people. But yes, it's very interesting to hear somebody outside of that community make a comment about that. Let's speak to Dr. Rakib Ehsan. He's social policy analyst and a writer, and he joins me now. And I want to have a real discussion, Dr. Ehsan, talking about superficially black. As I said, it is an age-old discussion that's actually had within the black community. Just explain for those who might not be aware of it, or maybe they are aware but just didn't really know what she was talking about. What do you think? What exactly does superficially black mean? At least what Rupa Huq was trying to say with that.
Well, I think Dr. Rupa Huq's comments, in my view, they were racist. Suggesting that Kwasi Kwarteng is superficially black on the grounds of his prestigious education. Kwarteng has a history of attending Eton College, winning a scholarship there, being a King's Scholar. And she also touched on his accent, suggesting that he didn't sound black on the Today programme. And now I found these comments absolutely remarkable. Firstly, deeply hypocritical, considering that Huq herself has a history of private education. But for example, the point on the accent, the broader black British population in the UK contains a rich diversity of accents, and as does the white mainstream. So I don't really know what she meant when she said that he didn't, suggesting that Kwarteng doesn't sound black. And I think the point on private education, I found this to be quite unfortunate. There's traditional ethnic minorities. Yes, the vast majority of their children are not privately educated, but they do place a strong emphasis on education. Those aspirational ethnic minorities. So this idea of a superficial blackness, I think it's really, really unfortunate. I consider it to be racist, unstructured bile. That's what I referred it to in my piece in The Critic. And I think that considering the mini budget has plunged Britain into considerable market turmoil, we're seeing serious problems with the strength of the pound. I think that leftist politicians such as Dr. Rupa Huq should concentrate on politics and policy and drop their obsession with the racial identities of leading politicians in the Conservative Party.
Do you think she was trying, and she did it sloppily, badly, but do you think she was trying to equate how out of touch many Tory politicians might be in terms of the level of education that they have, in terms of how wealthy they can be, compared to your everyday, you can argue that she's trying to speak to Labour voters, but to everyday people, and she sloppily equated that to Kwasi being part of that group, and therefore actually not really a black person, because a black person wouldn't really be part of that group. I'm just trying to come up with where she might have been going with it.
That's a matter of privilege and social class, which I think if the point was made that there's many people in the Conservative Party who struggle to empathise with the economic troubles experienced by those who live in more deprived neighbourhoods, then that may be a reasonable political point to make. The problem that I have is that she focused on Kwarteng's race. And I think that these notions of racial authenticity, I think it does undermine race relations in Britain, if truth be told. And I think that in terms of our democracy, I want to see our politicians focus on the bread and butter of political decision-making and policy preferences of their opponents. I think those, I'm more than happy to see those being critiqued. But I'll make the point that Kwarteng is of Ghanaian origin, I believe. I think that when it comes to traditional communities of Black African origin, okay, sure, most children in the UK are not privately educated. Like myself, they were state educated. But there is something to be said about those, appreciating those aspirational attitudes, recognising the value of families that have a strong emphasis on education. And I actually think that Labour need to be shoring up their relationship with those traditional ethnic minorities, as opposed to indulging in this toxic racial identity politics.
David, absolutely. David has just text me from Lambeth, and he says the implication that no black person can speak with a posh accent or attend a good university or only vote one way is the epitome of racism. If that had come from a white person, the reaction would also have been significantly more vocal. And it's a really interesting point, isn't it? Because what she was saying, and actually it's a discussion that we can even be had within the black community, is that is that black people only sound and act one way, as if black people are a monolith and there aren't a variety of people with different characteristics, with different backgrounds, but we must conform to a certain way of being, and that is what people are saying is racist.
Absolutely. Essentially, her comments was depriving a black man of his racial identity on the grounds of his educational history and his speaking style. And I find that to be absolutely remarkable. What we had is a Bangladesh origin woman questioning the racial authenticity of a Ghanaian heritage man. And I'll tell you one thing, it definitely shows the limitations of the BAME acronym.
Absolutely. And you're very right. Ghanaian heritage. His parents came over as immigrants, and he showed from a really, really young age just incredible academic ability. He was given scholarships throughout his... he attended independent schools, including Eton, went on to Cambridge and got scholarships throughout his academic life. Such was the level of his intelligence. So indeed, if he was trying to equate to privilege, it wasn't the case that his parents were well-to-do and managed to get him into school. But even if they were well-to-do, that should surely be a celebration that we have a different kind of voice, a different kind of dynamic when it comes to black people, rather than coming from the usual backgrounds that maybe she was trying to allude or point to. Really quickly, I want to get your reaction to the Daily Mirror today. Online, they were talking about Kwasi Kwarteng being very critical of his mini-budget, and sadly for them, they were talking about him and pictured another black man who wasn't Kwasi Kwarteng.
Well, I can see there as well that the banner above the photo is Explore Black History and Celebrate Black Culture. The Mirror would do well to actually identify our Chancellor of the Exchequer correctly. I think that would be a very good start. This isn't the first time, actually. No, I've seen mainstream news channels mix up black British politicians within the Labour Party. And I just find it so incredibly lazy. And I think it's thoroughly disrespectful, if truth be told. Kwasi Kwarteng is the Chancellor of the Exchequer, number 11 Downing Street. I think the least that the Mirror can do, if it really wants to celebrate the achievements of black British people, is to at least correctly show a photo of Kwasi Kwarteng and not do such a not be guilty of such a terrible mix-up.
Well, the Daily Mirror did swiftly apologise. We had that apology on the screen. If you could just stick it back up there for our viewers. This morning, a picture in a story about Kwasi Kwarteng was wrongly captioned on the Mirror website. This was a terrible error, and we apologise to Mr Kwarteng and all our readers. The Mirror has a long history of working against racism, and we will redouble our efforts on this. I mean, what does it say? How can somebody get it wrong? Is it because they don't have, I don't know, much experience of dealing with black people and they don't know the differences and how we look? I don't even know how you can get it wrong.
Well, I think that there's certain people, they indulge in a great deal of anti-racist virtue signalling. And it was quite interesting that the banner on top of the article. But just do the bread and butter, just do proper research, take those matters seriously. You can talk about how anti-racist you are as a publication, but things like that you should be really getting right.
No, absolutely. And gosh, it happened to a sports person who was killed, and they brought up the wrong picture of a sports person, I want to say a couple of years ago.
I think there may have been a mix-up involving Kobe Bryant after he sadly passed away in that.
And that was really
crash.
Shocking. That was really, really shocking. It was a major broadcaster as well. Dr. Rakib Ehsan, really good talking to you. Thank you so much.